One piece of land, 5 different buyers. 5 families who each believed it was there. 5 wire transfers. 5 times the money gone. That is not a hypothetical. That is something that has happened. And it has happened to people who did their research, people who had connections back home, people who trusted someone they knew personally. So before you wire a single franc, before you talk to any agent, before you forward anything in your family group chat, you need to watch this episode. Because there is a version of this dream that ends with a house and a version that ends with a lawsuit. And the difference between those two outcomes is not luck. It's not connections. It's not even money. It's information, specific, structural, documented information that almost no one in the diaspora is giving you. That ends today. I want to give you some context before we get into this interview because this is bigger than just one story. The Senegalese diaspora sends over 2.2 trillion CFA francs home every single year. That is nearly 10% of Senegal's entire GDP. And as of February 2026, the Senegalese government announced a formal real estate investment fund specifically designed to redirect that money from informal transfers into structured property investment. They know where capital is flowing. They know who is sending it. And now they are trying to build guardrails around it because without them, too much of it disappears. That fund exists because the problem is real and documented across the African diaspora, not just Senegalese, not just West African, but from Lagos to Nairobi. The same story plays on repeat. Someone works hard abroad, they save, they dream of building something back home, they send money to someone they trust, and months later, they find out that the land was never theirs, or the developer vanished, or the same plot of land had already been sold to someone else, or for someone else's. I have read about this in the Washington Informer and the Daily Nation and Vanguard News. It is a documented, continent-wide pattern, and yet it keeps happening. Not because people are naive, but because no one ever taught us what due diligence actually looks like when the system works differently than what we grew up with in the West. Here is the philosophical frame I keep coming back to. Frantz Fanon wrote in The Wretched of the Earth that for the colonized person, land is not just property, it is identity. It is the ground of belonging. And I think about that every time I look at how the diaspora relates to building back home. There is something more than investment in that impulse. It is an act of reclamation. We are trying to plant roots somewhere we were told implicitly or explicitly that we left behind. Predatory systems know that. They know the dream is emotional. They know how the urgency is real, and they exploit both, which is why the most important thing you can do for your money, and honestly for your sense of self, is to build with structure, not sentiment. This is what this episode is about. So I recently spoke with someone who has real on-the-ground experience navigating this exact process. She was born and raised in Senegal, attended the American School of Dakar, and moved to Canada to study financial mathematics in Nova Scotia. Real estate was not the plan for her. She didn't go to college wanting to be a developer. Like many of us, she pursued a degree looking for education and direction, not a perfectly mapped out future. While in Canada, she realized that the traditional financial industry path didn't align with her. The 9-to-5 structure was not for her. Senegal was always home. Her father has long worked in real estate in Senegal, and during an internship back home, she started seeing the industry up close. At one point, he suggested she build something herself. He thought she was joking. She was not. What started as a conversation became a real development project, what is now known as Paya Residence in Almadies, currently underway and expected to be completed within the next few years. But here's what makes her story different from most I built back home narratives. She didn't just build. She started helping others, friends, diaspora contacts, people who came to her with documents, with questions, with half-formed plans, and real money on the line. I asked her directly, over the past 2 years, how many people has she actually walked through this process? And she said, quote, I would say over the past 2 years, I probably guided around a dozen people through the process in different ways. Sometimes it's full support through our company where we handle the verification and guide them through the steps internally. Other times, it's simply reviewing documents or helping them understand what questions they should be asking before making a decision. What I've realized is that even a small amount of guidance can make a huge difference, especially for people in the diaspora who are trying to navigate the process from thousands of miles away. And I also asked her whether there was a specific moment that made her realize just how dangerous this process would be. And she mentioned that there was not just one moment, but there were definitely situations that made her realize how risky the process can be. She saw people who were very close to sending large amounts of money for land that had not been properly verified, simply because someone sounded convincing or showed them a video of the property. That's when it really clicked for her how important it is to have someone on the ground who understands the process and can verify things properly before any decision document is made. A video, a confident voice, a wire transfer. That is how quickly things can go wrong. And that's when it stopped being just her father's industry and became something she took seriously herself. Now, this is where things get serious. One of the biggest misconceptions about building in Senegal is that you can research everything online the way you would in the US or Canada or Europe. You cannot. In Senegal, a lot of the verification process is not digital. It requires physical presence. It requires going to offices. It requires legal confirmation on the ground. And this is where diaspora investors are most exposed. She has personally seen situations where the same piece of land was sold to 5 different buyers, 5 families, 1 plot. This is not a rare edge case. It is a documented pattern across West Africa. Fraudsters forge land registration numbers, produce clean-looking paperwork, and target buyers who cannot be physically present to verify anything themselves. Someone records a video, walks around the land confidently, sends it over WhatsApp. You transfer the money from abroad. The land never legally belonged to them. By the time you realized it, recovering that money is complicated, expensive, and emotionally devastating. So I asked her, what documents should a buyer always request before sending anything? And she said you should always look for official documents that prove ownership of the legal status of the land. The most important one is the title deed, which confirms who legally owns the property. In some cases, you may also see a bail, which is a long-term lease granted by the state. It's also important to request a registry extract to confirm that the information matches the official land records. But even with documents, verification is essential. Documents can be copied or outdated, so they always need to be checked through proper authorities before any money is sent. Now, where exactly do you need to go to verify? In Senegal, land ownership is verified through the land registry, managed by the National Land Administration, the DGID. A notary or lawyer can help request the official extract and confirm the seller is the legal owner. This step is extremely important because the registry is what legally determines who owns the land. And the immediate red flags, the things that should make you stop completely, that is, if someone pressures you to send money more quickly, that's usually a warning sign. If the seller refuses to provide official documents or avoids going through a notary, that's another problem. And if the price seems far below market value, you should ask why. In real estate, things that look too good to be true often are. Taking time to verify everything is always better than rushing into a decision. Trust is important, but documentation is more important. And physical presence or a trusted, accountable proxy on the ground is more important than both. Now that we know what can go wrong, let's talk about how to do this correct. Because once the land is secured properly, the rest of this process is navigable. The land use step is where everything either holds or falls apart. Rush it, and nothing that follows will save you. The first thing she emphasized is that the land is the hardest part. Not the building, not the design, not even the financing, the land. You can go through a reputable real estate company. You can purchase through the government, which at least provides a formal legal process and some recourse if things go wrong. You can work directly with a notary. Each path is different, but verification must happen regardless of which one you choose. A good lawyer is not optional here. They are not there to make processes exciting. They are there to protect you before something goes wrong. Prevention is always cheaper than litigation. I also asked her about zoning, something many buyers overlook entirely. And she had mentioned that buyers should understand whether the land is classified for residential, commercial, or mixed-use development. Some areas are strictly residential, while others allow businesses or larger developments. Zoning can also determine building height limits or density rules. So before purchasing land, it's important to confirm that the zoning aligns with what you actually want to build. What about infrastructure costs that people don't anticipate? Well, depending on the location, buyers may need to plan for connecting to electricity, water, drainage systems, and road access. In some areas where development is still expanding, these services may not be immediately available, so owners may need to invest in certain infrastructure themselves. That's why understanding the area and speaking with local authorities before building is very important. And the realistic timeline from land purchase to finished residence. Generally speaking, building a residence in Senegal can take anywhere from 2 to 4 years. That timeline includes the land verification process, architectural planning, obtaining the necessary approvals, and the construction itself. Sometimes the building phase moves quickly, but administrative steps and planning can take time. Patience and proper preparation are really key here. 2 to 4 years, plan for that, then build in a buffer on top of it. Once land is secured and verified, you plan. You hire an architect who has built specifically in that climate. Do not build in Senegal as if you are building in Europe or North America. Ventilation, materials, sun exposure, layout. The environment demands a different approach. Your building should respond to where it actually is, not to an aesthetic borrowed from someone else. Now, here is something almost no one says out loud in the diaspora real estate conversation. Dakar is not the only option. And in some cases, it is not the smartest one. When most of us say, I'm building back home, we mean Dakar. And often specifically places like Almadies because of prestige, familiarity, the names we grew up hearing. But she was direct about what that actually means financially. In Almadies, she said, land is extremely expensive. Depending on the exact location, prices can range roughly from 800,000 to over 1.5 million CFA francs per square meter. In emerging areas outside Dakar, prices are lower, but realistically, you're looking at starting around 200,000 CFA francs per square meter. There are occasionally parcels around 150,000 CFA francs, but those are also very rare. Overall, land prices in Dakar and surrounding zones have risen a lot, so investors should know that affordable plots are now hard to find and competition is very high. To put that into context for anyone doing the math, 800,000 CFA is roughly 1,300 US dollars per square meter on the low end in Almadies. Emerging corridors start around $330. That gap is very significant. So where's the momentum actually moving? Right now, areas around Jas and spots close to the highway connecting Dakar to the airport are really picking up. Infrastructure is expanding, accessibility is improving, and that's attracting more residential and commercial projects. Places that seemed far from Dakar 10 years ago are now becoming key growth zones, so paying attention to these emerging areas is smart. And what should investors be tracking proactively? Government projects are key. The airport development, new highways, urban planning initiatives, all of these influence real estate growth. When roads, utilities, and public services improve, it drives demand nearby. So if you're investing, always keep an eye out for where the government is putting money because that's where the market often follows. Senegal's offshore oil and gas production came online in 2024 and 2025. Infrastructure investment is following that capital. The question every serious investor should be asking right now is not where is popular right now, it is where is Senegal going? Growth corridors shift. What feels far today may be central in 10 years. That is when you want to already be there. Now let's talk about some common mistakes to avoid. Most losses in the diaspora real estate don't happen because someone didn't have enough money. They happen because someone moved too fast, trusted too easily, or didn't ask enough of the right questions. Mistake number 1. Wiring money before full verification. A video is not proof of ownership. A confident voice is not proof of legitimacy. Even a referral from someone you know personally is not a substitute for documentation verified through official channels. Mistake number 2. Centralizing all trust in one person. Family friend, agent, real estate, company, it does not matter. Cross-check everything. Verify independently. Confirm with registries. The people who get scammed almost always had one trusted source and no backup verification. Mistake number 3. Ignoring zoning and infrastructure. Available land is not necessarily buildable land. Zoning restrictions exist. Government plans affect zones. Drainage issues during the rainy season are invisible on a dry season site visit. Mistake number 4. Chasing prestige over strategy. High demand areas have high entry prices and less flexibility. The smarter move is sometimes less visible, but returns are returns. Mistake number 5. Copying Western design. A house that traps heat, lacks ventilation, or uses the wrong materials for the climate will cost you more long term than you have saved up front. Architecture should respond to the environment, not an aesthetic. Mistake number 6. Assuming cultural familiarity equals legal simplicity. This one, I feel it personally because I understand the feeling. Senegal feels like home in ways that are hard to articulate, but emotional proximity does not flatten a bureaucratic system. The dream does not protect your investment. Due diligence does. Now, I asked her what causes more disputes, land issues or construction issues, and she said that disputes related to land ownership are much more common, especially for people investing from abroad. Construction or contractor issues do happen, but they're usually easier to manage with clear contracts. Land ownership problems can be complex, costly, and stressful, which is why proper verification at the start is so important. And are project timelines usually accurate? She said yes. It's very common for timelines to extend. Administrative steps, whether during the rainy season and supply logistics can all add extra months. A project that might look like 2 years could easily take longer. Planning with patience, though, and flexibility is key. Rushing almost always creates problems later. Now, I want to close with something that I've been sitting with since I had this conversation with Paya, and that is the Senegalese government just created a formal fund to redirect diaspora remittances into structured real estate investment, like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast episode. Think about what that means. The state is officially acknowledging that billions of francs are flowing home and landing without protection. They are trying to build structure around something that has been informal and largely unguarded for decades. That is a signal. The opportunity is real, the market is real, but so is the gap between the dream and the deed. And here is what I keep coming back to. We were told to buy land, as if the infrastructure was complete, as if wanting it badly enough and having the money to try was all the preparation required. It wasn't. It isn't. The dream was handed to us without the manual. This episode is part of that manual. If you have been telling yourself, one day I'll build back home, let this be your research trigger, not your impulse trigger, your research trigger. Move slower, ask harder questions, verify more, think in decades, not in excitement cycles. And if you want a real starting point, find Paya Residence. She is building in Almadies. She understands both worlds, and most importantly, she understands the gap, the one where money disappears and dreams stall, because she has watched it happen and chose to do something about it. Building back home should feel like reclamation, not regret. And the more informed we are, the stronger our investments and our presence on the land will be.